Hello, hello. Welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be taking a look at the first half of the 2025 Dungeons and Book Dragons that is hosted and designed by Ivy, the Geek Goddess. I mentioned before I went away that I wished I could do a weekly check-in on this one, but that wasn't really going to be possible because of the fact that I was not going to be here to do that. So I wanted to at least do a mid check-in now that I'm back, and y'all can let me know if you'd rather do a check-in at the end of every 5-day period as well going forwards, or if we're just going to do a check-in at the very end. But I am having fun with this one. It isn't one where you can really do a lot of pre-planning, which is a little problematic because I can't necessarily get books from the library as quickly as I would like in order to fit prompts. So that is something that I am running into. And then obviously for the first one and a little bit of the second one as well, you'll notice that there weren't as many books read during those weeks as I normally would likely do, especially since some of them are shorter, just because I was traveling, and when you're in a foreign country, you really should, try to really dive in and enjoy as much of the scenery as possible. I mostly got to read books while I was on the train / metro, because we were crashing real early at night for the first few days at least. For me, it was most of the time we were there, just because it takes a while for me to really adjust to a new time zone fully, especially when it is almost the exact other side of the world, time zone wise. I believe we were 13 hours different when I got there, and it ended up using 14 by the time I came back because of the time zone, or what do you call it, I guess time falling back, because they don't do that in Japan. So I was really tired when I first got there, and of course when I got back as well. I was not really doing a whole lot this week outside of just working, because by the time I would make it through my work day, I needed a nap and then I wasn't sleeping well at night. So I'm finally, I think, almost back on track. It's, been a majority of a week, but chronic illness girly here, and it takes a while for my sleep cycle to adjust, and I need more sleep than the average Jane. It feels like it, not it feels like, I do. I always have. It's part of being a chronic illness girly. So let's jump right in. So first off, we started in the village, and I am enjoying this one because we're kind of going around to all the different places, and I can circle where we're at, and then if there is anything in the chat, I'm not doing the videos because she is putting videos in for the last 2 sections. I don't know how that would work for journaling purposes, but I am taking the copying over any kind of written text and putting it into my journal so I can look back on it, because I think this is a fun concept. I'm looking over here at this Hydra looking thing, the layer of Tiamat. We're not there yet. Right now, we just started the Infernal Fortress, so I guess this will be where we're at next. Okay, well, right now we're in the village. So, a main quest was summoning a village square. Villagers gather for summoning at the village square, a call to begin your journey, your first journey. So I needed to read a book that starts a series or opens up a world, and so I chose Guild, and I'm definitely going to be picking up book 2 on this series. I was just like, wait. I mean, there were definitely nods to the ending where they give you that little twist. If you've read this book, you know what I'm talking about like Midas and that story, and how it kind of ties in and how it differs from the story. And anyways, I was like, wait, book 2, where are we going with this? How is this going to play out? Now that we have these different people knowing what they know, and we're in this location and all those stuff, and I was like, oh, need to pick the next one up. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get it. I did put a hold on it. We will see how long it takes to get it, but it may be a little bit before I can read it, and I'm sad. I got 300 XP for this one, which was quite a bit of XP compared to a lot of other ones. I got a bunch of points because of how long it was, as well as the fact that it had magic, plus the points just for the quest itself. But it was nice that I got a bunch because of the length of the book, and it didn't feel long because there was just so much going on. So it was a fun one. All right, so we have all the side quests. I did literally just copy each of the all the words that are on here underneath of each of the blocks, and then whenever I finished one, I would pop it in there. As you can see, I only ended up reading 3 books total for that 5-day period because that was the first period where I was actually in Japan and I was exhausted and not getting through as many books. But I did get through a manga because number 7 was that we needed to read a short book, novella, or graphic novel, and it felt appropriate to choose a very nostalgic Sailor Moon number 3 while I was there, and I read it on my iPad in the Kindle app. So that was really easy. I find that it's not great to put it on my phone. It's just too small, and I am constantly. It's very annoying. So I usually will read them on my. It's not on my iPad. If I'm reading a e-book version of manga or a graphic novel. And then I read Looking for Alaska by John Green. That one is for a HerCAD prompt, and it's also on, I can't remember if it's on the classic or the banned book list. I want to say it's on the classics. No, based on the contents, probably on the banned book list. I did like it, but I liked The Fault in Our Stars, which I read later, which I, like last week before last, on my way back home. So last week, I read that one, and that one, 4 stars, fabulous, tears. Talk about that one in a second, but yeah, I did like it. I gave it 3 stars. It wasn't, of the 2 that I read, it was not the favorite of the 2, but very good author, it seems like. All right, so we had our first random encounter, and since I did not have any of my dice, I do have quite a few dice with me. I ended up using an online electronic dice thing, and I took a screenshot and popped it on there. And it was a wild bookworm attack. Worm, W-Y-R-M, which I thought was fabulous. Not the first time I've seen bookworm spelled that way when it comes to dragons and people who have book hordes versus... Anyways, I'm sure since y'all are bookish people, you get it. But I thought it was cute for a dragon and D&D inspired challenge. So I got a 5, which means for 5 points, I needed to share a book quote that felt powerful or badass. I ended up choosing a quote from The Alchemist. The simple things are also the most extraordinary things, and only the wise can see them. I actually ended up putting a couple different quotes in there, but I couldn't find, I didn't know that they were going to be deleted, like my entire thing. Everything was deleted in there, so I couldn't go back and screenshot it, and so I now know going forwards that in preparation for the next random encounter, everything gets wiped. But I didn't think to take a screenshot. I thought I'll take it later, and then it was gone. So I was like, okay, I chose the one from The Alchemist. Let me find it and pop it on here, so at least I have that part. Anyways, FYI. Next up, we went to the Dark Forest, and like I mentioned, I put the words that were put out there just so that I will be able to look back on it and remember. But the main quest was to read a book that feels magical or otherworldly. I chose The 13th Child, and 4 stars. I got 275 points on this one. I enjoyed it. I know I liked Guild better than 13th Child, but I don't think they're necessarily comparable. They're both fantasy, yes, but they're completely different. Well, there's royalty in both, I suppose. they just had different vibes, completely different vibes. So, anywho's, I did like them both. I liked Guild a little bit more, I think. All right, next up, all my side quests. I got a few extra ones here, and I got to use my first card, which you actually can earn cards as a team, and I am on the wizard team, so I get extra points for when I read a book that has a magical element, as an example. But we get cards. I have earned 3 cards to date and used 2 of them. So the first one I used, which was Cause Fear, which for a side quest you can earn double XP. And so I did that for Winter, which got me a ton of points because it's really long. It has magic. Well, no, it doesn't have magic. It's just really long and it is fabulous. So anyway, double points. So essentially, I was going to get 375 points, I believe, and that's double, right? 375. I'm a little tired still. I think it was 375, but I got to double it, so that was a lot. Loved Winter. I had meant to finish it in October, and I didn't. It was on my TBR. It was the only one on my TBR I didn't finish, and I was very sad about that. Well, on the 6, not all of the books I wanted to read, just the 6 that were on the other TBR spinner section that we do at the end of the prep. But that was the only one I didn't get to. I just didn't get to it in time. So I finished it. I believe it's over 800 pages, which is one of the reasons I didn't finish it in time. So I did knock it out then. Loved it. Going to be, there's one more left, which is a novella, and then there's a couple short stories actually that I found mentioned online that I'm gonna have to go track down because I am a completionist and I want to read everything in the universe. Anyways, next up, most of the others did not get extra points. They were fairly short reads, and they didn't have any magic in them for this time period. So I read Astrophysics for People in a Hurry, The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F. I liked Astrophysics for People in a Hurry slightly better. It got 4 stars. Subtle Art was 3, but it wasn't a high 3, if that makes sense. And The Edge of Collapse, I did enjoy. I thought that I may feel some triggering because there's definitely mention of abusive behavior and things along those lines, but it didn't because it wasn't a domestic partner and it wasn't any of the things that normally would cause more issues. At least that's my thought. I'm like, why didn't I feel triggered? I just felt intrigued and like rooting for the main character, which was great. Normally, you find out really at the very first chapter, so it doesn't tell you much that you don't know really right away. But essentially, the main character has been kidnapped and she escapes, and the main male character is like trekking across, and there's like they assume an EMP, and so her kidnapper is after them, and he is trying to get them. He's a soldier who they tell you a little bit about his backstory, but he's trying to get her to her husband and kid to drop them off so that she is safe before he moves on his way. And it's about all of the things that go on. It is a fairly short book. Since I got an extra 25 points, that means it's probably just over 300, but less than 350 pages. That's definitely what it means, because you get 25 points for every additional 50 pages. You have to hit the 50, otherwise you get rounded down. So it's between 300 and 349 pages. I'm pretty sure it's like 320 something though. It's pretty good. I did read the prequel on it, and I rated it 4 stars for the main. For the prequel, I only gave it 3 stars. I'm not always a huge fan of short stories and novellas. I do enjoy them because they add additional flavor and lore to the world, which I do enjoy. I just don't typically love the short brevity, I guess, of the stories typically. And that one was also just a bit of a hard read for the first one. Just some really tough topics for the prequel. So it didn't make its way onto any of the sections here. That's why I went ahead and mentioned that one. Random encounter number 2, I also rolled a 5, and I didn't think you'd believe me, so I took a picture again. It was a whole different one. It wasn't even the same roll program. Yeah, same program. But I got another 5. And I needed to rename my current read with a chaotic fantasy / D&D style title. For example, the Hunger Games turned to the Ranger Games. May the rolls be ever in your favor. And it's for 5 points, and it was a mischievous fae deal situation, as you can kind of see at the top there. I was currently reading, and I'm still reading intermittently, The Mask of Mirrors by M.A. Carrick, and I feel like that one is already kind of fantasy title. I mean, it is a fantasy book, and it's very, blank of blank situation. So I was like, well, based on the summary, because I hadn't finished the book yet, because I was still in the middle of it, I'm only about a third of the way through it, what may be a good title? So I ended up going with the Rogue's Retribution, that alliteration, similarly to the original title, but anyways, that's what I chose. I'm not really good at these kind of things, so give me a little bit of leniency, maybe, please. Next, we went to the Hall of Echoes again, added the verbiage that was there, and then this is where I used my second card, and that was just for 75 points generally to whatever title is put in there, and I needed to read a book with a dark setting, atmosphere, or that feels mysterious or foreboding. I chose Chasing the Boogeyman, which I gave 3 stars. It is serial killer, small town life, mystery kind of thing. It wasn't quite what I thought. Based on the review by Stephen King that you can kind of see at the top there, it said chilling and something brand new, compulsive read, scary. And I was like, okay, so it's going to be kind of scary, maybe a little more thrilling, and it wasn't quite that for me. I felt it was, I would have liked a bit more punchiness, I guess. There was a couple of times where there was issues where I was like, oh, okay, we're getting into something a little bit more on the chilling or scary side, but it didn't feel super chilling and scary, at least in my mind. Maybe it's because I was listening to it instead of reading it, because I did audiobook this one, but I liked it. I just didn't think that it fit the review verbiage, not verbiage, I already said that, review, like, keywords. But I enjoyed it. It was fine. Moving over to side quests, I did get more side quests this time than any other. I did mention The Fault in Our Stars. Tears just on the plane, just quietly going down my face. It was, yeah. I mean, I knew what was going to happen. About like halfway through, I was like, oh no, oh no. But at the same time, it just grabs you. I had not read it. I had not watched the movie. So, yeah, maybe I shouldn't have read it on a plane. But, anywho's, what it's done is done. It was lovely. 4 stars. Would read again. Well, I mean, not would read again. Not anytime soon. Just because I don't know that it would be as compelling to read it quite this quickly, but like, give me another 10 years and then I'll be like, okay, I'm ready, take 2. Until the End of the World, I also plan on reading the second one in this series at some point, and it gave that one, I get a lot of 4 stars in this side quest arc, which I enjoyed quite a bit. But Until the End of the World, zombies and getting out of New York, starting a farm, craziness going on with ex-boyfriends and all kinds of fun things. I just see a typo on number 6. Whoops. We'll read the next one. Undead Fox of Deadwood Forest was from Forever Young book club. I believe it was actually for October, or maybe it's for November. It was either October or November's book. And it finally was available, so I picked it up. Fairly short read, knocked it out in a couple hours, maybe like 3 hours, 4 hours, something like that. It was fairly short. And I definitely enjoyed it. It was a good sort of younger discussion on death and moving on, general grief type discussions, which are really good to have, but from a forest animal and non necessarily religious view. The fact that there is an afterlife, some could say that is potentially religious, but it is animals, not humans, even though they are anthropomorphized and humanized, generally. Anyway, it was a good book. I enjoyed it. I felt like there could potentially be another one in this series because it says, oh, that's a story for another time, several times throughout the book. So I was like, oh, okay, are we going to get sequels or prequels or ones set in the same universe? But it doesn't look like there are. But this is also a fairly recently published book in the scheme of things. So maybe we'll get some more in this universe at a later time, and I would probably read them if that were the case. I did enjoy it. Contact, I gave 3 stars. It was the sci-fi book for this month's selection, and it had to be, dark cover or ominous title. I like it that fit. I listened to an audiobook for it because I did not have any options other than that one option from all of my library cards that I pay for it, etc. Could not find it, and I didn't want to purchase the book outright or the audiobook. I wanted to get from the library, if at all possible. I've mentioned that before, that I really am trying to not spend money on books right now and get as many from the library as possible, or borrow from friends, or etc., etc. But when I went in to log it, because it was a fairly short read, I realized that there was no way that the book that I had just listened to was as long page-wise as it was saying it was supposed to be. There was just no way. And the only thing I can say is it must have been an abridged version. So at some point, maybe I'll read the non-abridged version and see if it is different, if it makes it become a 4-star, or if it's still a 3-star, or what was taken out of it. But I did enjoy the book. It was an interesting concept when it comes to contact with aliens, and I enjoyed it. Would read again at some point. Not right away, though. Sold. This one was for my banned book list, and it was a more difficult read, but it was done really well. So the main character is, I want to say, like 13, 14 years old. Like the very beginning of the book, she starts her period, so that tells you about when she is. It does say, I think it actually has her birthday in there at some point. So I think she's 13, if I remember right. And she is sold into human trafficking. And it doesn't get into excruciating details about what that looks like with the actual assault and things along those lines, but it definitely gives you a lot about what's going on in her head and what she's having to do to survive mentally, and what that feels like, for hiding and for learning coping mechanisms, and how she feels about the other people and girls around her in this essentially brothel with quite a few other underage girls, as well as some a little bit older people as well. But it's not an easy read, but I think that it was an important read. So I'm glad that I read it. And yeah, I gave it 4 stars because I thought it was really well done. It didn't give you information you didn't need. Gave you just enough to be able to feel for the girl and understand her story, and without giving you excruciating details that you don't necessarily need to know nor would want to know about her abusers and the assault and things along those lines. But anyways, that one was probably the hardest read so far for this month. Even though I cried for The Fault in Our Stars. So that one, it grabbed me more, I think. But I think they also, it was because they discussed a lot about, of course, obviously grief and death and things. But they made you connect so well on The Fault in Our Stars with the main character, or at least I felt very connected to her because she talks about what it is to be chronically ill. I mean, for her, she is chronically ill knowing that she will pass at some point, and she is just trying to extend her life. And they tell you that right at the very beginning. And what that means emotionally and how you have to sort of fight this, do I want to live for the moment all of the time and get as much from the world as I can, but at the other side I don't want to leave behind people who are feeling like I'm an obligation, or that they are really, really, really sad because I connected with them even more so, and it made it worse for them when I left. And it was just, it was heart-wrenching. And I obviously am not going to pass from my chronic illnesses, at least not anytime in the near future. But it is still some of the same conversations she had with herself about connecting with people and feeling like a burden and things like that were things that I remember from when I was a teenager and young adult, and even further into adulthood, having those same discussions with myself about, like, I don't want to be a burden, I want to do these things, but that would make me feel like a burden to the people who love me, and they're already dealing with so much. Do I want to make that worse? And there's just a lot you have to do in general and cope with as someone who's dealing with a lot medically. And the character, is really well represented by John Green, in my opinion. Obviously, I do not have cancer, and I do not have the same issues to the extent that she does when it comes to, knowing that your time is limited and everything else. But I didn't feel like I needed that to understand where she was coming from and the turmoil and pain that she was dealing with. Anyway, I'm getting a little choked up, so we're going to move on. Anyways, lots of 4-star reads for Side Quest 3. Then we end up moving into the remaining cards, and that's the last slide for right now. I've already created the section 4, and I'm starting to try to figure out what I want to do because that came out at midnight last night, so I haven't yet picked any books for that one yet. I can show you what it's going to be, but you could probably, I haven't picked anything, so it'll probably be a little boring. But anyway, I still have a Dimension Door card, and I am trying to use the cards as I earn them as much as possible so that I don't end up at the very end with a whole bunch of cards and no way to use them. They're just points that aren't being used, right? Which at that point feels wasteful. So this will give me an extra 50 points on the next book I have that has magic in it. I just haven't had one since I earned it to put there. So we're moving to Inferno Fortress next, and the color scheme is this orangey color. Like I said, there's not a lot in here because I literally haven't put anything in other than just made the next sections. But I need a book with intense stakes and or high tension. And then these are my side quest options, featuring fire heater volcanic imagery, contains trials, same last digit as my birth year, so I need an 8 for a published year, so I could do like 2008, 2018, 1998, 1988. I could go back even further, I suppose, and go to 78, 68, et cetera, even 1800s, as long as there's an 8 on there. But I have not looked to see if any books that are on my TBR end in an 8 for the published year. That would be a really easy one if so. Close friendship or fated mate. I will likely choose fated mate because I have a couple fated mate tropes on my TBR that I would like to get to at some point that are easily available from the library. And then secret society or hidden room. Dangers or forbidden experiment. I don't actually know that I have any with forbidden experiments currently, so let me know if you know of any. And then a sweet book that will melt your heart, or a twisty book that will make your brain melt, and then someone is being hunted or haunted. I could probably get this one knocked out too with a couple of books that I have. I just don't know if I would get them from the library in time, and that's the problem I've been having in general. Is like, ooh, I can think of a book that'll fit, but I don't have a lot of books on my bookshelf. I mostly get books, either get them for secondhand and then pass them on when I'm done with them, or get them from the library. I do have a few books, obviously, that I have collected, but generally, I had so many books. I had like six or seven bookshelves at one point, full of books, and I was moving so frequently, it just didn't make sense to keep them. It's very expensive to move with books, and so I was moving from apartment to apartment, but they were all in the same city, so I was like, I can deal with that. I'm moving myself, no big. And then I moved out of the country, and I needed to store my books, and they were going to go in my parents' basement. They don't have a basement now, but they did at the time, because they were in Missouri at the time. But they did not have space for all of my things, all of the furniture that I had, and all of my bookshelves, and all of my books, and everything else. So I ended up getting rid of most of my books at that point. Not all of them, a good bunch of them. I donated to libraries, friends, etc., etc., etc. And then I started collecting a little bit again, but I was a military wife, and it wasn't really feasible. Yeah, it just didn't make sense to collect books to the extent that I had before. So then I ended up moving cross country, and by myself without military movers, because I got divorced, and that was like, oh goodness, like 12 years ago at this point. And I have moved every couple of years, continued to do so at this point. So I just haven't really done a lot of collecting of books. I'm hoping, obviously, that I will be a little more stable in where I am living. Nothing necessarily wrong about it. I haven't lived anywhere bad. I've moved a lot of places either for work or for love. I moved here 2.5 years ago, to Connecticut, to marry my husband. We dated long distance for quite a while, a couple of years. I want to say 3 at that point, before we got married. And I'm a remote worker, so it made more sense for me to be the one to move than for him. So I moved up here, and we plan on being in this place probably for another 4 or 5 years before we move again. So we're pretty stable at this place, but I also don't have a ton of space in this house. So again, not really collecting books. Side tangent that we don't necessarily need to get into, but I already did, so story time. Anywho's, thank you so much for coming. I need to do one more recording today to get caught up. I know it's been like over a week since I had a video out, so I'm trying to rectify that as quickly as possible so we can get into new material going forwards. Do let me know if you would like just an end of the month wrap up for this particular challenge, or if you'd like an every 5 days when the new challenge comes out. Here's what we did last mini arc, and here's the plans for the next one, and that kind of thing, or just here's the final ending for the last couple. But I will chat with you guys next time, and have a great day.